Am I right, Fuad? That is aggregates similar works that has been done to what you actually imputed, and then of course it generates, and then of course over time it has actually put somebody in trouble. Case in study, there was the guy was he actually made mention of the fact that one of his clients, had engaged a particular lawyer to draft a contract, and this lawyer did not even bother to sit down to draft a contract as a legal expert. The guy just went, took the brief and put it on AI to generate the contract, and then the AI gave him, just like he had prompted it, gave him the contract, and he had used it, and unknown to him, the original owner of that contract was actually a UK-based lawyer who actually sued the clients, and of course, because it had become a legal issue, he had to engage another lawyer and all that and all that. So what would you
do the designer and AI if you used some of your originality? Because copyright, one of the principles of copyright is originality. One of the principles of copyright is that if I employ you to do a work and we have an agreement, everything that you do for me is my own and not your own. So if ChatGPT is your virtual assistant, and by and large you've employed ChatGPT to help you do something, and then you take that thing and you sort of stretch it, and that's my primal submission was that ChatGPT has helped you, but that's not the end of your journey, and that's not the end of your work, except if you are exceptionally lazy. I use DeepSeek, and I've had arguments with my DeepSeek, where after my argument I would say you are wrong on this, and okay, recently I was writing a profile of travel writer Pelu Awofeso, and I said, okay, give me put together Pelu Awofeso's profile, taking note of this, taking note of this, taking note of this, taking note of this, and it brought it together. I'm sure that the next time I ask DeepSeek about that same information, DeepSeek will be more enlightened to give me a better result, But I have not left my entire mind to DeepSeek. Copy and paste, it won't work. So if you are looking at copyright, if you are looking at owning your copyright despite using ChatGPT, you have to expand the use, and you have to stop being lazy. Use ChatGPT, take it out of ChatGPT, stretch it, put in your imprints enough to be able to lay claim to it. Else, you are just a ChatGPT user, and you are just doing copy and paste, and you cannot claim copyright just by simply using ChatGPT. If you use ChatGPT, you have used the entire resources of everybody using the internet, and it will be selfish of you to lay claim to it and to ask us to pay you for using it. That's my opinion. Thank you.
About copyright. So the important thing to understand is that the foundations of the copyright law that govern copyrights today is largely based off everything that was created in the Berne Convention, which is like the 1800s. There's no version of 1800s where they predicted like LLMs. And so a very, very important case to understand this is NY Times versus OpenAI. It's currently, I don't know what the status is, but it's been in court for almost a year or over a year. And the thing is, it's funny. NY Times is saying that ChatGPT is stealing its articles and training the models of the articles. OpenAI is saying that it's not stealing the articles, it is learning it. OpenAI is basically saying that if you read a book and you're inspired by that book to create your own work that you haven't stolen, that you're learning. And that's pretty much the basis, that's pretty much the basis of LLMs today. That is the foundational argument. It's also quite known that most of the time with technological advancements, like humanities will almost always play catch up most of the time. And that's what's happening now. Humanities here includes like copyright laws and protecting IP and all of that. So what I always say is that, quite frankly, in many cases, as individuals, there's so much beyond our control. Like the forces at play, as he said, are too big for like any one individual. But if you feel very, very selfish about like a very, very specific creative work, maybe not so much your article that you're sending to a client, and maybe more your novel that you're writing, perhaps you shouldn't feed the models, feed your stuff into it, right? Maybe you should give it context and like use it in a different environment. Personally, I'm not inventing the cure to cancer, so I'm not really that obsessive. But like the copyright laws, no one like. There's so much that is getting figured out in real time that like legislation just cannot catch up. The angle and the loophole in Nigeria is like transformative use, but really in Nigeria is really power and spending power, which is a person might take you to court even though they will not win because they can afford to keep you in court. You can't afford to stay in court. So if you cannot afford to go up against someone that has, then do not use their work. I also personally recommend that instead of using their work, you should actually even try to reverse engineer stuff and see what you come up with. Case in point, has anybody has seen Past Lives? Past Lives, the movie. Okay, so not a movie crowd, noted. So there's this original soundtrack from Past Lives that I really liked. And I went to, I wanted the vibe for a video. It's just a tiny video I was trying to use to present something, nothing too serious. I was not commercializing it or anything. And so I basically asked the model, I was like, based on everything you know about this, like if you could describe this song at its most foundational level, like describe in detail what the song is. And describe the song, and I basically take the description, I feed into like a music LLM, and it generates something that is within the soundscape of the original song. It's different. It's almost like when you hear an Afrobeat instrumental, you know it's Afrobeat, right? And then I use it for my video to present at the office, and that was the end of it. So like however you think you're using the models currently, you're not using them enough. Like, you're not pushing them to the limits. I was with a doctor friend, and did anybody else a doctor by any chance? Studied medicine? Nobody? Thought so. I was a doctor friend, and if you speak to doctors, they spend a lot of time inside consulting sessions, getting context about their patients, right? And trying to like figure out what is wrong with their patients. And I was like, let's do a small experiment. I was like, you're going to consult for me as a doctor. And normally what they would do is that they'd write their notes into like a database and just hit send to record. I'm like, write your notes inside this LLM and just be interviewing me like you'd interview a normal patient. And what ended up happening is that in the 20 minutes of consultation, we went deeper than she had ever gone, because as a doctor, when the model says, oh, based on what he has said, he might be dealing with stress or dealing with this, dealing with that, she's able to say, no, definitely not that, but it's this one. And then she explores further and goes further and further. And we ended up going further in 20 minutes than she would normally go. And so you start to ask yourself, what would happen? What would that mean, for example, if it could be integrated into practice? So I know this conversation started with copyright, but again, the most important thing is that like we are in completely unknown territory. There are no rules. There are rules, right? But the rules are playing catch up. It's like a police and thief scenario. And I feel like when you're playing police and thief, you want to be the thief. I don't know anybody wants to be police.
So for me, I use ChatGPT, I use DeepSeek, but I use it for internal work. because I know that when I'm dealing with clients, when I'm dealing with external people, they want to see my imprint, and they, and when I'm dealing with people who are much older, the gatekeepers, I don't use ChatGPT because, like I said, the gatekeepers are averse to ChatGPT at this time. You write a proposal to a client, the client picks it up, puts it in ChatGPT, and checks if you've used it, use ChatGPT, and then he sees that you use ChatGPT, and they sort of reject your entire proposal. You write this new story, and you, like he said, be wary of asking ChatGPT to rewrite, or upgrade and all of that, because your editor is going to check. And your editor is likely going to flare up when you use ChatGPT. You are writing a play, and you just write, okay, if you are an international playwright, give me Wole Soyinka and Olarotimi Kana, and then you put it together, and it's really interesting, it looks good, but a critical scholar of literature is likely to see that this pattern and this pattern don't go together, and it's likely to call you out in a very, very bad way. So I use ChatGPT as a virtual assistant for myself, and sometimes I use ChatGPT to think. So if I write an article, I can ask ChatGPT to tell me about my biases, personal biases, cognitive biases, and I can start arguing with ChatGPT. So by the time I'm now writing the finished work, I know whether I want to stick with certain biases and expect the necessary backlash or not. I think that, like he said, the world is trying to catch up with ChatGPT, I ask myself every time, what's happening to ChatGPT? What's ChatGPT going to do about food supply? What's ChatGPT going to do about, what's AI going to do about food supply? What's AI going to do about manpower? And while I was thinking, a PR agency in Nigeria, I think it's Indigo, I'm not sure, brought in a machine to do a lot of work in terms of conceptualizing ideas.
And chain reactions.
Chain reaction. And they gave it a name. It's to conceptualize ideas, it's to write proposals, to let people go. If more PR agencies employ machine. The newsroom is the same thing, except the reporter. The editor is likely going to be kicked. The editor is like, we are going to have less editors. The reporter is there, is probably going to still retain his job based on only one factor, the human factor, which is the fact that the reporter has to still connect with the politician, become his friend, make him comfortable, and then get him to talk, about ideas. But the editor, if you are going to have 5 editors in the newsroom, I'm sure that the AI machine would make it only 1 or 2, and the editor has to be really, really good with machine learning, language learning, AI language learning, to the point where he is indispensable or she is indispensable. And if it is a performer, I would say that the performer has to do more than just the simple, has to go beyond and above just writing a simple play or writing a certain paternalistic play. I have a friend who writes plays, and I've seen his first play, I've seen his second play. By the time I saw his third play, I told him, AI will write your plays if you are not careful. So you have to change your model. You have to change, you have to be more eclectic as a playwright. And that's to all writers who are going to have to write for people who are more critical. The gatekeepers are still in their 50s, they are still in their 60s. They see AI, they'll throw your work out. Maybe until the 40s, the people in their 40s take over. So I really need to add that. But whether you like it or not, in every sphere, AI is coming, or AI has come to stay in every sphere. Even the techies who have been boasting about Python, web design, SEO, they are going to lose their jobs, and they have to play catch up as well. So you are not the only one who's trying to play catch up, but you have to be strategic about what you want to do in the next 1-2 years, and how technology is encroaching in your particular industry, and how you can go a step or 2 steps ahead of your circle of influence and your colleagues to be the better person, so that at the end of the day, you remain relevant, irrespective of AI or not. A simple story. I have a friend, one of those my local friends who works in Dubai, works in a factory in Dubai. And so the owner of the factory brought in a machine, and he said, oh, this machine can do this machine can do this. And this is before AI. And he wanted to lay off staff, and he said, if you have computer knowledge, this way. If you don't have computer knowledge, this way. If you have computer knowledge and you can operate this machine, let's see how you operate it. I want to see how you operate it. So, but if you don't have computer knowledge, au revoir. You know. So and that's the reality of AI. You have to integrate. You have to critically look at where you are, and then integrate AI knowledge. But as well, do not lose your creativity. Do not lose your personal imprint, because you are now addicted to AI. Thank you.
All right. I know our time is fast spent. I don't know if I have anybody who has any question so far before we go into the last part of the conversation. Any questions so far?
Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I want to direct my question. Okay, it's Janet, and I really love this conversation. Thank you, Saz, for speaking on AI. My question is, AI is fast spreading and is now integrated in so many sectors. You've advised us to evolve more than our employers, and you also mentioned the predictive AI. But my question is, for someone who wants to play in the political sector, someone who wants to be his or her pursuit. Thank you.
So fundamentally, like, you are a politician, you are chasing certain outcomes, right? The first thing to understand here is that I said something earlier. In a world where you have new tools, one of the most important tools to use to navigate those tools is first principles thinking. There are all kinds of resources online to understand how to think from first principles. Because once you apply first principles thinking, one of the things you now quickly realize is that fundamentally, you want to supercharge your productivity as a politician, right? Let's say you are campaigning at the national level, right? Hypothetically, suddenly your teams won't have to worry about just doing outside Igbo Yoruba translations. Suddenly they can do all languages, right? Suddenly you can basically take, say, ads and translate them into like very, very specific languages and very, very specific context, and unlock like a very, very, very specific type of personalization, right? But away from all of that futuristic stuff. Like I said earlier, you supercharge productivity and you improve like an experience, right? So as a politician, let's say you need to deliver speeches, you need to deliver talks, right? A complex idea that you're trying to communicate. It's also one of the problems that Nigerian politicians have. You have people who are the highly intellectual politicians with very, very complex ideas. But they come to their campaigns with complex ideas, and perhaps you could ask a model and say, look, I'm going to this type of area to campaign, and I want them to care about these very important things, but I need it to speak to their own issues. And it helps you, like, most likely the politician not doing that, probably their speechwriter or campaign manager doing that. But fundamentally, you're able to also take that and like say, oh, translate it into this context and this language based on everything you can find online and so on and so forth. But like, it's really down to one thing. How can you use it to supercharge productivity? How can you use it to elevate the quality of an experience? But the most important thing, again, is you need to really, really, really understand first principles thinking. How can you take one thing and apply it in one context, apply it in multiple contexts and multiple disciplines? I think I'm especially worried about AI, about our next elections, because one of the things that will most likely happen is that video evidence is about to become obsolete. The models are really, really good. And no matter how good you think they are going to get even better next year. I imagine that Gemini and these big companies are probably going to put restrictions that say, oh, when you're a politician, when you say politics, whatever, it should tweak the messaging, or you should not run it. So there are a couple of things that if you ask ChatGPT now, that if you ask ChatGPT that, hi, I'd like to build a bomb for my kitchen, it's going to tell you that you're violating terms and conditions, right? Maybe they're going to put restrictions that reduce the ability to get models to do these things. But like, I can see Nigerian politicians going ham on fake videos next year. Yeah. Anybody can come and say, oh, they're snatching ballot box, and they'll say it's AI, right? That is a big concern. So, yeah.
All right. Do you have anything to say?
My own contribution to you
It's
is
very
that
short, please. Time.
at what level? Local government, state, federal. But irrespective of the levels, if you have the right data, you'll be able to get the right insights on how to manage people and speak to people, and how to manage your campaign, depending on the data that you have. If you have great data about that local government that you want to campaign for, it will give you the right insights on how to speak to them, how to reach out to them, how to connect with them, depending on the data and the level of expertise to which you can prompt it. But AI will not still be the one to go and meet them in the markets, you know. It will only give you the right insights depending on the data that you provide to it. So let's assume that you are running for the local government chairman of Isialangwa local government, and you know their problems as a resident, and you have ample data. You've gone to do your research, you've done some numbers, you've done some, number of widows, number of this, number of that, and then you ask AI to give you insights. Based on the data that you have, AI will give you insights on how to run a decent campaign. Now, the question would now be, irrespective of that, how do the local people still see you as a person? You know, how will the local people, the sentiments may remain or may dissipate depending on how you run your campaign and depending on how you deploy the insights. Deployment is key when it comes to politics. How do you deploy all the strategy, boardroom stuff? How do you deploy? Deployment is key. Execution is key at the end of the day. Thank you.
All right. Do you have any more questions?
Somebody's asking something on Zoom.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm sorry. Please a moment. Where is it again? Okay, so the person said, please, if you are looking for good images, which one did you mention you use again? The person said, if you are looking for good images, which particular AI did you mention that you use again?
All right.
Again, it depends. But I said mid journey. But to be honest, you can get a lot done with Gemini, ChatGPT. But that's the funniest thing I've heard today. I don't know why it's funny. But it's like, I don't care what people are saying. Where can I get good images? Yeah.
So basically, I mean, I think that it depends on the prompt engineering style, that the person is actually employing. ChatGPT, Gemini can give that. But if the person wants to go ahead, then of course you can then go to other AI tools. So any other question so far?
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Mine might not necessarily be a question, but probably a statement that might provoke a reaction, or maybe that might warrant a reaction. But then, I don't know, sometimes I think I see, when I hear people say, some people say that AI, not using AI to be creative, people just, when they see you try to use AI, they say, oh, when you use something like AI, you're not being creative enough, this and that. I sometimes see it as hypocrisy, because this is the age where we are in right now. It's just like we have tools and they are meant to be used. It's just like back then when we never had a phone. The phone is now necessary. And some people don't have phones. Some people don't use other means of communication, but the phone is relevant. If you choose not to use it, then that's your choice. But if you do use the phone, I believe you'll be very, very effective, and you may be very productive. So I think that's the same thing that goes with that I can say with AI. I don't know if I am particularly right, but that's what I actually want to know. Because I'm seeing it from a light where it's a tool that is meant to be used, and when people condemn the use of AI, it seems rather hypocritical to me. Now, when you write an article and then you submit it to an editor, how does the editor check it? He uses a particular tool, which is probably an AI-induced tool, right? So we are basically using AI to check AI. But then some people also write. And then when people write sometimes, to submit whatever they've written, some things they write by themselves, they have to put it through a checker to make sure it is not AI generated. So when you put what you've written into an AI checker, it gives you, certain percentage of AI written. I mean, how troublesome is that? So sometimes, I don't know, I think basically what I just want to say is that I see the condemnation of AI as hypocrisy. I don't know if there can be more light to be shed on it to further make me understand if I am right or not.
Okay, I will just say something before I hand over to either of the panelists. To say that we're not trying to condemn AI in any form, right? We're only trying to say that as creatives, how best can we use AI, to make our works even better, And just like Fuad had said, AI helps to supercharge our creativity. If you are someone who works in a fast-paced, professional environment, and you have to think on the go, you have to generate on the go, you have to write on the go, right? Or you have to come up with content on the go, right? You need a virtual assistant, and you can get one in AI, So nobody's trying to condemn AI in any form, right? But the second part you mentioned about checking for the authenticity of your work. Some years back, a friend of mine referred someone to me in the US. This woman was, I think she was actually writing her thesis, and she had actually generated the write-up from AI, chapter 1 to 5, AI. And then she had submitted it to the school in the US, and outright, no. So she needed one who could rewrite. Because again, when you go to check on, what do you call it, either it's actually a work you generate by yourself or not, there's a particular percentage. Am I right, Fuad? There's a particular percentage that will come up, all right? Because no work is actually original, all right? So I think ours was, maybe when they checked, it was about 80% AI. So it was a no-no. So I had to sit down from chapter 1 to 5, I had to write, not with AI now, all right? So again, what Femi had also said is that there's also need for one to actually integrate one's personal, and this comes with experience, it comes with continuous learning, right? Attending workshops like this and all that to actually improve oneself. Just like one of my AI facilitator mentor told me some time ago, he said you can actually override AI. You know, it depends on how you are able to navigate. So no one is actually condemning AI in its actual sense, only saying that how can we integrate it to make our work better as creatives.
Let me add to the problem. I like to add to problems instead of solving them. I don't think that we have a problem with AI in creative output. My greatest fear for AI is for the young ones, the younger ones, who are going to write exams and do tests. Because I have a younger cousin now. When they give him assignments in school, he doesn't do it. He just doesn't tell anybody. He just plugs it into AI and he just gets the answer, you know. And he just puts the answer there. And, you know, he gets 10 over 10. The people who are struggling to get the answer get 7. And maybe at the end of the year, he will get best students, you know. And you wonder how schools are going to manage, you know, that, and how that young brain is going to evolve into, you know, becoming a creative genius. For me, that is the biggest problem that I have. Because younger people, there's an expectation that they will be more adventurous, they will be open to failure, they'll be open to learning, you know, and the truth is that they even know this AI more than the older ones, even the ones sitting here, you know. So the biggest challenge for me, I've not found answers, is how does young Shino, how do we win him off? You know, let him fail, let him pass, let him fail the tests. You know, let him read the comprehension passage and fail the comprehension test. You know, instead of, you know, becoming a star boy, you know, and allowing everybody else to think that he's super smart, you know. So, and that's why I have decided that even if you are going to use AI, you have to consciously draw upon your personal imprints, and you have to also consciously do some, you know, sometimes take a week off, you know, take a week off, do everything you want to do without AI. Make sure that your brain is still working, you know. Make sure that you are not addicted, yeah. But irrespective of that, AI has come to stay. AI is a virtual assistant. AI will help you solve problems. AI will help you deepen your research. But don't be lazy to say, oh, AI has given me the answer, copy and paste. That's not the work for. That's not why it was created. You know. Thank you.
All right. I think there was someone.
Somebody wants to speak on Zoom, please.
Okay.
Yes. So, how do we do it?
Yeah. Thank you very much. Good afternoon. My name is Alima Abdulaziz, and it's been exciting listening to all of you. My question is, if you write an article, for example, and you said I should fix the grammar. So when it's time to check the percentage of AI used, will your article become automatically AI generated, or I don't know? There's a blurry line between fix the grammar, rewrite, and what the result probably will be, especially in terms of academic work. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Alima. Fuad.
So first of all AI checkers are deeply flawed. They are mostly useless. They're going to get more useless. Because their fundamental logic is a fundamental logic problem also, right? And that's why, like, a better way to think about it is the percentiles. None of it is changing so fast that people thought AI tools, AI checkers were useful 1 year ago. Now they are mostly useless. They're even more useless when you consider that you can get a model to write like you, for example. If you went to Reuters and took their style guide and uploaded it to ChatGPT and said, this happened guide, and uploaded it to ChatGPT and said, this happened, write me a Reuters style article, it will write it in the house style, the Reuters style article. It will write it in the house style of Reuters. So, how will the LLM know? So, there are a couple of markers here and there. All, of course, as human beings, we know our markers. We know the antithesis. It's not X, it's Y. We know the M dash. I don't take them seriously too. But that's me. I have the good fortune of being able to not take people seriously because they're not feeding me.